So welcome to a Daredevil Born Again episode 4 review. Bit of a breakdown, bit of a look back. There's going to be spoilers for this, so if you don't want to know spoilers for the episode, then do not watch this. I'm not going to be holding back. We're just going to be talking about it in its raw form. This was a very, very interesting episode, and I'm not going to say excited to talk about it because it was a very strange episode, but I'm interested to talk about it. So, we had, in my opinion, our first filler episode. Now, bearing in mind, there was some, important stuff that happened in this episode, but it was, drowned out by a lot of filler stuff, in my opinion, anyway. And I feel like there was some stuff in this episode that we did not need. We did not need. So, we started the episode with, of course, Hector Ayala's kind of possessions and stuff being taken in after his death in last episode. And we get to see Matt meet his niece, and she's basically, she's grieving, understandably, and the entire scene was really, really good, and all I could think through it was, she's going to be on the Young Avengers, isn't she? The moment I saw her actor actually speak, I was like, oh yeah, she's going to fit in really, really well with, Miss Marvel, Wiccan, that whole group, I just think is going to be really, really fun to watch. I'm very excited for it. That's coming from a Young Avengers fan. The first, actual comic book run that I read was Young Avengers, and I've made a point of collecting a lot of Young Avengers, and I'm very excited if she's going to be on the team. I'm all for it. I think she's going to be great, and I can't wait for it. And I'm interested to see, what her outfit's going to look like, how she's going to interact with the others. I don't know if this is the last we're going to see of her on the show. We might see her more in Daredevil later on in the season, but in my opinion, if she's going to return and she's going to be part of the Young Avengers, I'm all for it. She looks great. My only gripe is that so far, with Marvel setting up the Young Avengers, we don't have a lot of men in the Avengers right now. We've got literally just Wiccan, and that's it. And Wiccan's my favourite comic book character in terms of Marvel, and I'm fine with it, but I want some more. Give me my Hulkling, give me my Patriot, give me Tommy. Let's get some men in the Young Avengers if we're going to be doing the Young Avengers, or the Champions, or whatever they want to call them. I'm cool with them being the Champions. They don't have to be branded Young Avengers, but I think it's interesting that the Disney Plus shows have involved a Young Avenger in pretty much all of them at this point. So next up we had more marriage counselling stuff. This was some of the stuff that I didn't really enjoy watching this time around. I thought it was interesting at first when it started, and then it dragged on a little bit too much. There was a couple of scenes in this that I don't know, I weren't connecting with them. Matt has to do a legal case where he flirts with a judge to try and get this guy that blatantly stole some food for a valid reason. It turns out, I don't know, I think they did a weird they went around it in a very weird way with that whole case that they had Matt tackle for this episode, and it felt like, we just had a big lawyer episode. Let's have another bit of lawyery stuff in here to, make sure that fans know what kind of show this is. I thought it was weird that, the first time you see Matt go in to speak to the person he's meant to be defending, and the defendant doesn't come off as sympathetic at all. And, it doesn't take until Matt then comes back and says, look, this is the best deal you're going to get, that we get to hear his story. And I think it would have been a lot better and a lot more fitting for the tone of the show and what we've just seen to show that first and to have the sympathy first. And I do not even have, the defendant being quite arrogant and, I don't know, that's what he came off as to me, was quite arrogant. And a little bit too cocky and stuff, and I don't know, he was making a lot of blind jokes, throwing just shade wherever he could, And I don't know, I weren't really here for it. I didn't really enjoy it too much. I thought it was a little bit weird. And I came out of like the first interaction with him being like, oh, I don't really care what happens to you. And then in the second one, I was like, oh, actually, you're not that bad. But I don't want, like, that's just a cheap kind of cop-out. Like, I don't want to have to get plot twisted in that scenario. I don't need that in this show. It felt a little bit cheap to me. But that whole side thing, I didn't really care too much about. We got a Skrull mention. That was a funny joke where somebody was like, the defendant was like, you know, can't you say it was a Skrull? That was pretty funny. And yeah, we got a lot of flirting with the judge, which I don't know if she's going to be a returning character or if it's just to show, like, Matt's fuckboyness, the great himbo of the MCU. I don't know. But maybe she'll return. Maybe she'll be a future love interest. I actually preferred his chemistry with the judge over his chemistry with the marriage counselor, ironically enough. And they keep hard pushing the marriage counselor. I preferred the judge. I thought that they had way more interesting chemistry. We also found out during the marriage counselling that it is very obvious that Vanessa is now the kingpin, because Fisk is trying his hardest to play it good and to do, you know, the actual politician's sort of route of trying to help people and trying to do things by the book. And it's not working out for him very well because he's not enjoying it. He's just not doing great at it compared to how he would be if he was the kingpin. And we see that Vanessa has kind of filled that vacuum up with her presence instead. And I mean, they showed that in the previous episodes, but I feel like there's a scene where the marriage counselor says to Vanessa, you know, do you feel safe in your marriage? Do you feel safe in this relationship and stuff? And Vanessa's like scoffs and she's like, yeah, of course I do. Fisk would never hurt me. I have a feeling Vanessa's not making it out of this season alive. Whether it's by Muse, whether it's by Fisk, I have a feeling she might be dying. And I really enjoy her character, but I don't see what she could do past this show, if that makes sense. I don't know if I see, like, a future for her character. Whether it's getting written out, whether it's getting killed off, whatever. I don't think that she's making it out of this season. But yeah, like I said, I feel like this was the first filler episode. There were very important things dotted throughout this episode, and we're going to get onto them. But there was a lot of, like, I don't know, comical kind of moments. We had some lighthearted Daredevil, Matt Murdock moments where he was kind of doing a lot of joking around and stuff. Felt like the 2012 Matt Murdock kind of run. I'm trying to think of the name of that run or who wrote that run, and I have no idea, but I've read some of it. It's the one where he defeats the Spot, and everyone knows that he's Daredevil, but he's pretending that he's not. It's that run. And this episode kind of felt like that Matt Murdock to me. But yeah, let's get on to the important stuff, because Punisher's back, baby. That's right, Frank's back. I don't know if Daredevil has known where Frank is the entire time, or if he's sort of just tracked him down. There's a comment where, like, Frank says Fiji. Like, he's been out, I don't know, meditating somewhere in the mountains. I don't know what Frank's been doing this entire time. Hopefully we get to find out, because it's been a while. It's been like, what, 4 years since Punisher Season 2, I want to say. We had a long time without any Punisher. And the thing that I love the most about this is that his little base looks like a comic book Punisher cover of him stood in front of, like, the racking getting, like, a gun ready. His base looks like the perfect setting for that, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get, like, a one-to-one creation of, like, a Garth Ennis Punisher comic book cover recreation with John Bernthal's Punisher. Like, his little base with the surveillance cameras and stuff. He's living underground in, like, this maintenance area. It looks pretty cool. Matt found him immediately. It doesn't seem like they've interacted since Daredevil Season 2, which, again, I don't know what's going on there. There was no reference to, like, the blip I know that we can't keep hanging on the blip, but I want to know, did these characters get blipped? I just need to know. And I feel like I'm not alone here. I need more context for, like, what has happened between the end of the Netflix shows and where our characters are now. I need to know. I understand that, like, I think we've been told that Daredevil didn't get blipped, but then I'm fairly certain we got told that Kingpin didn't get blipped. Did we get told that? I feel like we've been told that. Not in the show, but, like, by showrunners and things. I feel like that information is at least out there. What happened to Frank? How did Frank react? Did it set off, like, his alarm bells? Because that would have been a massive thing for him, seeing half of the world vanish in front of him. You know what I mean? Like, it's an important established event in the MCU, and I think as we're moving towards Secret Wars, I'd like to, because they've just said that Tony Stark's death in Endgame is crucial to Doctor Doom's new story in Secret Wars. So clearly Endgame is still very, very important and crucial, and we need to be referencing it so that people don't forget that that big event happened. And I wish that they'd kind of drop something in here about it. We got Bullseye name drop, which was cool. I think it's the first time that Poindexter has ever been called Bullseye in the show, to my memory anyway. So that was pretty sick. Like, he's got an actual name. We got a little bit of, like, in terms of acting, in my opinion, probably the best since the opening of the show. The best scene between Burnfall and Charlie Cox's characters. They were just, it were brilliant. It were brilliant. And unfortunately, that was all we got. It was one big scene, debuting Punisher. Obviously, anybody that has recently, that had previously watched the Netflix stuff already knows who Punisher is. I don't know if new audiences or anything, like, people that weren't familiar with those shows, I don't know if they'll know who Frank Castle is. So it's interesting that they didn't bother to kind of establish him more. I was expecting to at least see something referencing his family's death, or like something action related, but no, we didn't get any of that, which I thought was interesting. We got a lot of Mayor Fisk. Mayor Fisk in this episode was really good, but it was part of some of the filler stuff that I had a problem with. Like him, the scene of him listening to kids sing for him is really funny, but it took up a lot of time. And I'm like, you could have done this in like a quick action montage of like, boom, he's here, boom, he's here, boom, he's here, and he's having an awful time. And that would have been enough. We didn't need to spend as much time on it as we did. But yeah, I like that they're doing Fisk and Daredevil kind of like co-protagonists. Obviously, Daredevil is more of a protagonist than Fisk is, but we're getting to see a lot of Fisk. And I really enjoy that. And we're getting to see him eating. He's eating. I said in the last one, I reckon we're going to see him eating every time he does something bad. And boy, he had a feast this episode. My God, he had like pasta with sausages on top. It made me very, very hungry. It looked great. And we got the reveal that where his Rabbit in a Snowstorm painting from Daredevil Netflix edition, the updated version with his blood on it, is somewhere in like a basement, and in there is Adam, the man that Vanessa is having an affair with, or was having an affair with. It seems like Fisk has been holding him in a cage as a prisoner for a very long time. I don't know how long, but a very long time. Like, Adam had this long-ass beard, long-ass scraggly hair. I mean, unless he had them as a fashion choice and Fisk's only held him for like a week or two. But the insinuation there is that he's been there for quite some time. We got a really cool little like Batcave scene of Matt going up into like the attic kind of maintenance area of his apartment, and all of his Daredevil masks are there. You get like a little bit of a glimpse at like the classic one that we saw in She-Hulk and a couple of others. Interested to see which ones we get to see in live action, like proper. You know, is he going to wear a different one each season? Is he going to wear a different one when he's part of the Avengers? Is he going to wear one for Secret Wars? You know, what's the point of all of these helmets and stuff? I'm quite interested to see. And where's the armourer? Are we going to get to see the armourer again? Or is he getting all of his stuff commissioned from the fella from She-Hulk? I have no idea. But these are like little things that I wish I knew. That I wish they would tell me. And then the episode closed. It opened, well, it didn't really open, but we had one earlier on in the episode, a little tease for Muse. And I was a little bit upset when we saw the first one because I was like, is that all we're getting? And then we got like another little teaser at the end. But we're almost halfway through the show now, and Muse is meant to be the big bad. We don't really have a big bad, aside from maybe Kingpin. Otherwise, it's kind of just like following this Punisher cop storyline, and I feel like, you know, they started off really, really strong with Foggy's death, and then, you know, all of the repercussions of that with the first episode, the mindset that Matt is in, and then the second episode kind of calmed down, kind of took a step back, and, you know, we went at a bit more of a snail's pace. And even episode 3 was much more of a slower episode, but it kind of formed into the law show thing that we're kind of used to. You know, the whole trial of Frank Castle, the trial of Hector Ayala. It was a really good episode. This one kept the pace, but didn't really have like a through line of what we were following. We followed the Punisher cops for like a little bit. We got like a tiny bit of Frank. We got a little bit of Kingpin. We got a little bit of Muse. It was all over the place. And I think that's why it felt like a filler episode, was because there was just so much going on that wasn't particularly important. It felt like it should have been elsewhere. Like, if you want to do a law show of Matt Murdock tackling different cases and stuff, you could just do that instead of having, you know, or like slowly trickle Muse, for example, throughout and then have some sort of big plot twist. But it feels like they're doing miniature little arcs, and I don't know if this is like, this feels like maybe the middle point of an arc, and it feels like it could get wrapped up very easily with just Punisher shooting a bunch of cops. And I feel like they're making much more of a big deal out of the whole Punisher cop scenario than they maybe should be, when there's more interesting things like, you know, Kingpin, Fisk, and Muse in the background. It sort of went from, like, there's not a whole heap happening with this show. We've just got, like, one storyline to focus on with the Punisher cops, especially last episode. Like, that whole last episode, the through line there was the Punisher cops, because the second episode ended with that. So the third episode picked up with it and just ran with it. And I think that's why the third episode was so good. And it had like a definitive end at the end of that, where it was like, oh, finally, we're going to get like some sort of crescendo to this storyline, and then we're going to hop on to Muse. And we're still not there yet. How are we like 4 episodes in, and Daredevil doesn't even know that Muse exists? This is insane. I did like the fake out that when Kingpin and Vanessa both said that they didn't know where Adam was, my brain immediately was like, okay, well, Fisk has done something. But then we get to see Muse carrying a person. I can't remember if that scene was after the Kingpin one, but it kind of clicked on me that I was like, okay, maybe they were kind of hinting that it could have been Muse that was stealing people. I think it would have benefited after that scene where Vanessa and Kingpin are asked, you know, where's Adam? And they both say they don't know. If we then got a flash to Muse carrying a body down the train tracks, and that was it, that would have been cool. And then we get the twist of, oh, actually, it's Kingpin holding Adam, and Muse is just fucking taking people off the street and making art out of their bodies. That, in my opinion, would have been a lot better. There was, like I said, there was all sorts happening in this episode. I don't think it was a bad episode, but it did feel like a filler one. My ratings so far have been like a solid 9 or 10 out of 10 for the first episode, 7 for the second episode. I think I gave the third episode like a 9, an 8 or a 9. This one, we're going back down to 7. I didn't really enjoy it as much, and I was kind of just waiting for the next cool thing to happen. And I saw reviews for the last episode say that there was no action in the show and that it was harming the show. And I don't think that's necessarily the case, up until this episode. This episode could have used something, and I think it was a Punisher fight. We really should have seen Punisher versus some cops. There's a scene from the trailer where we clearly see like a SWAT team or something going after Frank. I don't know if we're going to get that in the next episode, but it should have been in this episode. I think it really could have used some kind of like oomph, some kick to it. But yeah, in my opinion, this was the weakest episode out of all of them, though it had, ironically, some of the best scenes with the Kingpin Adam stuff and with the Matt Murdock Frank Castle interaction. It had like some of the best scenes in the season, but overall the episode was just very, very weak for me. Didn't really enjoy it. I'm not gonna over exaggerate and say I'm never watching Marvel ever again, but this one was a weak one. So let me know what you thought about it. Did you enjoy it? What do you reckon of the show so far? Again, we're getting halfway through at this point. How do you feel about it? And they must feel pretty confident for the final leg of it because they're doing a season 2 already. They're filming it. So I'm interested. My favourite thing so far is watching Kingpin eat. I cannot wait to see what he looks like at the end of the season. I hope he's huge. I cannot wait. Thank you for listening. I will see you guys in whatever the next video is. Bye-bye.